So James, we're back.
Yes.
Um, that was a great session. I wanted to ask you uh, that joke, the joke about the lion and the gorilla. Why was there a spiritual point that the preachers were making when they told that, or was it just they just
I
liked the
think
joke?
that is also an absolutely phenomenal question. I don't even think so.
Okay,
I don't even think they were telling a joke that actually made the way we were doing things a joke. I don't think they were even aware.
okay. So it was just a favorite joke that they liked that just was a
Yes,
good. It was like a crowd warmer, an
that's it.
icebreaker.
That's it.
I think that's all. I think. I mean, I wanted to say, I always want to say this, and this is me sort of like appealing to the people in the ICOC and ex-members that, that always struck me was, Kip obviously came along, and then his first evangelist that he appointed was Steve Johnson, as I understand it, the first employee, and then the second was James. You were the second evangelist appointed, uh, you know, under Kip, and it's like you were there right from the beginning, and I don't and for me, as the ICOC has been a huge part of my life. I was in for 15 years, and my wife was in, and the best man at my wedding was in, and a lot of my friends I'm still in contact with, and a lot of the things I do now have been influenced by the ICOC. So the fact that you are kind of like a founding member of it, and the founding member of the branch that I became a part of, for me, just is endlessly fascinating hearing these stories. But I have nothing else to say apart from what's your next lesson if you're ready to go.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the way, why now, James? Why are you speaking about these things now? I'll tell you, I'm 69 years old. I'm going to be 70 in December of 2024. And my health is medium. I'm not saying I'm going to die in the next few months. All I'm saying is when I talked to Matthew and said maybe I should wait another year or two to do these, he went, "No, I think, dude, you might want to go ahead and record them now just in case something happens." So I think he's aware of the health situation. And again, I just want everyone to know because I think this is so incredible. I'm trusting him and only him to have every recorded episode of this done. If something happens to me, and it could happen, then Matthew has these to release as he wants when he wants. I just want everybody to know that. So this is a very serious lesson today, and this will not be done all today. There will be a part two of this, if not a part three. It's entitled "The Curse of the Church of Christ." By the way, here's another reason that so many keep quiet. It's the curse of the church. And let me say that title is not meant to startle anyone. It's not an exaggeration to make a point, which I can do very easily and will do, by the way, even in the course of these lessons. It's really a curse. And here's the curse: we are right, everybody else is wrong. Here's the curse: we are saved, everyone else is damned to eternity. That curse is the cause of so much harm that I'm going to mention to ourselves and to others. This curse is a deadly virus. And let me tell you regarding the virus, because we know a lot more about viruses these days. I caught it, I bought it, and I taught it. 100%. Take, for example, many will refute others calling the church a cult. We'll talk about this a lot. And the phrase they would use, it's an interesting one if you listen to it. The phrase that they would use to defend it against being a cult is this: no way, it's too hard to get into and too easy to get out. You will hear that a lot. Now, there's some truth. Let's be honest. First blush, you hear that. We did make it hard to get in. We didn't accept someone coming to us on a Friday night and saying you're part of the group now. Thank you. Sign here. No, we did make it hard to get into. I agree with that. But we did not make it easy to get out of. We did not. And that's where the curse came in. Too easy to get out. Yeah, there's an exit door at the back of the church. We used to say this as preachers. And if you don't like this, there's an exit door at the back of this church, and you can walk out anytime you like. Yeah? And there was an exit door at the back of the church. And it was unlocked. It was not guarded. All you had to do is just push it. Push the door and walk out. But the curse has a written warning over that door that says, abandon hope, all ye who exit here. Listen up carefully on this one. So we stay. So we stay. We might stay even if it was any other organization, we would leave. But we might stay even when our own consciences are nudging us out. We might stay even if it is damaging to ourselves or others. That curse works on anyone who leaves, like me. What was it like when I left the church? For weeks, for months. Let me tell you the emotions I was dealing with. Regret, fear, guilt, nightmares. I'd have a nightmare about being out of the church and being called Judgment Day, I'm going to hell, and I'd wake up and go, okay, that nightmare I just had, is that the Holy Spirit? I don't know. Is that the Holy Spirit trying to warn me about something? Or is that the curse? Is that the curse that I've now entered? Then the phone stops ringing. But we had so many friends. We called each other brother. We were closer than a family. We neglected our families to do things with this group. We core band the heck out of it. And yet when I left, where were those brothers? You know, if you leave a Church of England and end up going to a Baptist church, there's no curse. You don't stay up all night wondering, what have I just done? Am I heading to hell forever now? Oh, am I now going to be the blame for my children and all the relatives that are brought into this?
You've frozen for a second. You've frozen for a second, James.
This curse is powerful.
Sorry, James.
Okay.
Just
No,
go
it's
back.
fine.
So no, it's just because you froze for that second. It was you talked about the Church of England, the Baptist. We got that just
Yeah.
from that point on.
And by the way, you can leave a Baptist church and go to a Methodist church, and you're not going to go through all this post-traumatic stress. In fact, you could leave any of those churches and not go to any church again, the way I've chosen. Don't worry, there's not going to be, you were a Baptist, now you don't go anywhere. I mean, that's thousands of people in the religious world, except if you were in the Church of Christ. And by the way, not just the ICOC. Go ahead and add in the ICC and add in the good old-fashioned traditional Church of Christ. They also have that same curse. It's interesting what I've learned happens because of this curse. Now I've left, and because of the curse, I'm beset with all these doubts and fears and guilt. So now watch what I start to do. I start looking at that church that I left, and I try to prove, not just to me, but to the world, why I left it. Because I may have doomed myself for eternity, I've got to build a case that can justify me walking away. And that's not easy to do, but it makes you critical. It makes you critical of what was there. Even hypercritical. People do that, and sometimes they're not even aware that's what they're doing. By the way, there are people today that have left the church. Matthew's going to talk a lot about this himself. There are people who left our church that are so critical and negative towards the church, with every right. But it's almost like their new passion in life, their new calling in life, is to prove that church was a spiritual wreck, to prove it was a cult. We have, this is my opinion, we have ex-members listening to more sermons from the ICOC and the ICC than the dadgum members of those groups. We've got people that are pouring through every letter, every email that was ever written, all of the surprise recordings that we've got on a Wednesday night service. Listen to how horrible they are. I'm not besmirching that. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it's natural. We left something that was so intensely connected to our eternity that we will spend the rest of our lives trying to prove to ourselves and others that leaving it was the right thing to do. And by the same token, people that stayed in are doing the same thing. They're going overboard trying to prove why they stayed in was the right thing to do. They know about the wrong. Are you kidding me? It's out there. So if you stayed in, even after the Henry Crete letter came out, and if you stayed in even after you found about this and this and this, and after 9 out of 10 people leave and you're still in, they're also dealing with this curse because a lot of them want to leave. They do, but they can't. They're stuck. And because of that, they're now doing the exact opposite of what we did when we left. They're looking for every reason why it was the right thing to stay in. If you ever hear those people talk, oh, they will tell you, they will let you know, oh, our church never did that. No, our church never did that. Someone else goes, oh, yeah, we did once do that, but we have changed. Hear it? Do you hear all the reasons they're trying to convince themselves of why it was right to stay? Oh, we're so different now. You have to come and see it. Oh, our old preacher is gone now. You have to come and visit. We're a brand new group now. The curse affects everybody. And now let's get even deeper. Consider how the curse might affect the confidence or arrogance of the current members. It's not that they're arrogant people. It's that they've landed on a premise that is so horribly ridiculous that I'm the only one saved of all of my family and generations. We're the only ones in this country of the United States. We're the only ones that are truly saved forever. We're the only one. It affects their arrogance and even more the leaders. Think about the leaders, because I'm representing leaders. Here's what goes on in the leader's mind in the group. Okay, there's only one church in the world going to heaven. That's mine. And God has installed me as their leader. How dare you challenge me? Many a preacher would get up on a Sunday and say, these are not my words today. These are the words of the Holy Spirit who has been spoken to me to give these thoughts to you. Confession,
You pause there. Sorry,
yes.
James. You have to go back. Just say confession. That's where you.
Well,
Sorry.
that was a pause that the internet gave to me. Yeah, it says the internet's unstable. That makes two of us.
It makes three of us.
That makes three of us.
Confession. Confession.
I did the same. I preached it saying these are the words of the Holy Spirit, so don't even think about disagreeing with me. If you disagree with my message today, you're not disagreeing with me. You're disagreeing with God. So good luck on that one. And I meant it when I said that. That's where I was at that point. Yes, this curse will always create legalism. If we're the only people in existence that will not burn for eternity, but will be in the presence of God, why would we ever question anything regarding our doctrines or beliefs? And there it is. You just got locked into being a Pharisee. It's all about the doctrine now. as a current evangelist told me regarding his belief in traditional women's role. He said, if you pull on a string, a loose string, a loose thread doctrinally, like the women's role, if you do that, it will begin to unravel. The garment will. And soon the garment dissolves. I still remember the first time I told you that. I just had that conversation, and I still remember Matthew telling you about it. And you got all excited. You're like jumping up in your chair, and you went, yes, yes, that's perfect. You were exclaiming with glee, that is deconstruction. Yes. And yet, something that excited you that much about someone looking a little deeper, testing the things that we had been told. As much as it filled you with glee, it fills them with panic and resistance. You cannot play around. So we become certain. That's what we did. We decided to become certain about all things. I've learned since the opposite of faith is not doubt. Doubt is actually central to faith. The opposite of faith is certainty. And the curse made us so certain. It's time to turn it over to you right now, my friend, with questions, thoughts, disagreements.
I mean, gosh, my mind is buzzing. James, thank you so much. Again, just powerful, moving. I think the first thing I want to say is just a comment. I think for me, although we're talking about the ICOC, the ICC, the Church of Christ, for me, I'm not trying to insult any other church, but we were like, kind of like on the cutting edge of how far you could take legalism and kind of, we are the one, we took it. A lot of churches believe we're the true church, but maybe other people or our denomination generally, or work the Protestants against the Catholics or the Jehovah's Witnesses against the Seventh-day Adventists, whatever it is. We really went for it in terms of we literally, it's us, it's just us. But I think it's a microcosm of all of Christianity, because essentially a lot of Christianity is like, Christianity is the way, Christ is the only way. If you're not a Christian, you're going to be lost. I'm not saying all Christianity teaches that, but a huge tradition and current state of Christianity teaches that. So I think everything you're saying, even though it applies specifically to the ICOC, and we took it to a very extreme degree, I think it applies more broadly throughout the whole of Christianity, and probably for other religions too, to take it that way. So I just want to make that point. The other thing I want,
But Matthew, the Methodists don't take that as far as we do.
but they take it, if you're not a Christian, you're going to hell.
If you're not a Christian,
And then how do you be a Christian? And then, I mean, you get into issues of once saved, always. I mean, there's all sorts of doctrinal issues out there. But essentially, there's a boundary. So our boundary was really tight. When at the peak of the ICOC, our boundary was you have to come to every meeting, give your tithe, have a discipler, do what you're told, submit to leadership, our boundaries were super tight. So that's what made it very cult-like. But essentially, other churches are very similar. They're just their boundaries are wider. And quite often it's the family, because everyone in your family is a Methodist. Somebody else pointed this out to me. That actually a lot of the time it's the families that put those sort of pressures on, whereas our church was kind of built of people we'd met on the street a lot of the time. So it was kind of we had a discipling system, which I'm sure we'll come to. But I think it exists I think it basically exists throughout religion and throughout Christianity. These kind of as soon as you get into the issue of heaven and hell, and God being angry, and you might spend your eternity suffering or your eternity in paradise. I mean, it's not like Islam doesn't have this. I don't know about Judaism so much, but a lot of religions have this idea of this big reward and this big punishment. And as soon as you get human beings then saying this is what you have to do to get that, you get control. So I'm just saying, I think these things apply throughout the religious world, and certainly throughout the Christian world. And then the other thing I would say, And feel free to come back on that, James. I'm not, I'm just the other thing I would say, I just from the last session, when you talked about I'm more loving now than I was when I was in the church, I
Yes.
absolutely believe that for myself.
You
I
are as well.
Oh, 100. I mean, it's not that I didn't want to love people. I just, I remember one time encouraging my mother with some Bible verses. She was going through a really hard time, and I found some Bible verses that really encouraged her. And I remember talking with an evangelist who's not a bad guy in any way, shape, or form. And he wasn't, but I remember talking to him and explaining to him that I comforted her with these Bible verses. And we both questioned, is that a good thing? Because she's still lost. So I've comforted her with Bible verses, but she's still lost. So that overrode everything. And I remember one of my sisters, I wouldn't stay in the same house. I went to visit her in Italy, and I refused to stay in the same house with her flatmate because she was another female, single female who was not a relative. So I was like, no, I can't. That's a hint of immorality. So this poor girl had to go and move out and sleep on someone's couch while I was living, and I would always be, all my work colleagues and university, my focus would be to convert them. It wasn't to care about them or their lives or get to know them, or it was like it was like this doctrine. This doctrine was my God. Whereas now I believe love is my God, but their doctrine was my God. It was like this belief of like, and I understand it, but it essentially is fear. So absolutely I wouldn't even come, I would say, I don't even know. Like before I became a Christian, I was a drug taking, very selfish, hedonistic person. But at least when I loved people, it was just natural. It was like I loved those I loved, I hated those I hated, and there was a lot of people I hurt, but a lot of people I tried to care, but it was genuine. It was like from the heart. When I became a Christian, it became so doctrine, so like this, it became unnatural. And I think that's one of the great problems with Christianity. And the ICOC exemplified that. We removed you almost that whole thing of don't trust your heart, it's deceitful. So I just wanted to say, and not everything you're talking about, as you did as the leader, I did in a smaller way as a member, even though I never really, was a lead. I was an assistant Bible talk leader occasionally, and I led a Bible discussion briefly, but I was always right at the bottom of the pyramid. I did very similar things, very similar things. Sometimes I remember rebuking this guy who was about to leave the church, telling him he was crucifying Jesus. And I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, I don't even believe this. And I'm trying to I'm trying to bully this guy into staying in the church. And I never did that again. So I did learn from it, but I did those things. And in my evangelism, I could be incredibly harsh with people on the street, telling them they were going to hell, challenging them. And so I totally relate to what you're saying. I just wasn't at the high responsibility level. And 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 we can talk about what that means in the future. So I think those were the main things. There was so much other stuff you said, James, that I think the thing about, oh yeah, ex-members being, I think it's true. I think it's complicated why some people just move on with their lives, and they go, I spent 10 years in the church. It was pretty bad. It was good. Whatever. I've got a friend who recently said, I look back on my church experience very fondly. He's moved on. He's happy. Not really a big issue to him. So I think there's a whole range. I'm still very involved. I hope I'm not doing it just to vindicate myself. I hope I'm doing it because I genuinely love the people in it, and I feel like we could do better and we could learn the lessons. But yeah, there's a whole range of reasons and responses to the church. But I think the more seriously you took the heaven and hell issue, because I think my friend, the one who's less concerned about it, he was like, I don't think I ever really believed we were the one true church. And for me, it was never. So for him, he never really bought into it. I think I really bought into it. I think you really bought into it. I think if you really bought into it, that goes deep inside you. So, yeah.
Yeah, well said. I still remember when Doug Arthur actually told me we were studying, and I said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! I need to pull the car over. I need to pull the car over for a second. Am I understanding you right that what you're saying is that when I get baptized, I'll be saved, but everybody I've ever known is lost and going to hell, including all of my grandparents, my mom, my dad, who is a Baptist preacher, my siblings. Is that what you're saying? He said, yes. I said, Doug, that doesn't make any sense. What's the odds? I mean, that's crazy. The odds of me being the only one that could find it. He was ready. Always be prepared to give an answer. He said, you were a good football player in high school, right? And I went, yeah. He said, all those football players out there, how many of them got scholarships to go to a university? I think I was the only one. Yeah, that didn't bother you then, did it? You know, that was an incredible. If you see how many people out of high schools that are playing and only one's chosen to go getting paid to play at college, this is what we're talking about. It was interesting that he was ready for that. And when I heard it, it settled about 30% of my uneasiness. But I still remember that conversation from so many years ago. So it looks like we've got 3 more minutes.
Well, can I ask you a quick question then, James?
Yeah, please, please.
Did you say Doug Arthur studied the Bible with you?
Yes.
Oh, did he baptize you?
Yes.
And that was in that church you were in before.
That was in Cole Mill Church of Christ, which is a traditional church in Durham, North Carolina.
So Doug Arthur studied the Bible with you, and he went through that thing with you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, your family, everyone's lost. And James, sorry, before you say, how deeply did you buy into it?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. As I got older in Christ, I would say God's grace may cover these things, and nothing will make me happier than if it's all covered. If I get told on Judgment Day, I know you played it really straight, but the truth is everybody's making it into heaven. I'm not going to be the guy protesting going, well, that's not fair. I had to give up more stuff. I was hoping that would happen. And by the way, I want to say this now, though it's not in my list of topics, I do want us to talk about, do you call it universalism?
That's what, yeah, it's not my term, but yes,
I want to discuss that with you because this is interesting in that you're 100%, you are as fixated on universalism as I was on only the very, very few are going to make it.
Well, because I was also fixated on only a very, very few are going to make it. So that's why, because it bothered me deeply. You know, it was the day
I
when
want us to do a lesson on that, and I want you to lead it. We'll find the time because I think a lot of people, and by the way, I've been listening, studying, and I've read every one of your Facebook posts, as you know, for the last 3 years. And my conclusion is now I'm working through it. I'm not there. I'm working through it. And you know what's interesting? It's such a major thing. Like if you told people in churches of Christ, got some good news. You know, their old joke is on Judgment Day and the group's going all the way up to heaven and it's the Church of Christ. And all of a sudden you hear cheering at the top and they go, Wednesday nights don't count. Like that just made everybody so excited. If we found out everybody's going to heaven, that changes everything. Then there is no more curse. The curse is lifted at that point. And how many people are going to stay in a church? We're paying. We're paying not to be tortured. That money that we give every Sunday, and I'm sorry, we need 4X coming up next month because, and it's a 16X coming up. If there was no hell, I don't think people would do that. I think they would go, I'm sorry. What are you holding over my head? I'm going to burn forever? Because I don't buy that anymore. I think a lot of things would change with this. And my life wasn't filled with good news when I was in the church. It was all bad news because everybody I met was going to hell. And if they didn't convert and do it just the way we said, there's another one going to torture forever. I mean, it really makes me wonder how good news, if we really bought into this, it makes such a difference. I'm just letting the crowd know this. If Matthew has a rough time with people, and there are a lot of people who have a rough time with him, but he'll tell me, I need to find a way to get along with him. I'm going to be in heaven with him forever. So I need to go ahead and find some way now. We don't say that about people we don't get along with now. We say, oh, they'll get theirs. Don't worry. I would not want to be them on Judgment Day. Where's the love?
Where is the love in that?
So we'll bring that up. Whoa, we just hit the 30 minutes, Matthew. And that was the curse. We're going to talk about the curse a little bit in the next one before we go on to the next topic.
Okay,
But I want to thank you.
thank you, James. I'm ending the recording.